What happens when 17,000 Allied troops, live-fire missiles, and growing China tensions collide in the South China Sea? As Balikatan 2026 ends, the Philippines faces a defining question. Can stronger military alliances protect sovereignty without pushing the Indo-Pacific closer to confrontation? The annual Balikatan military exercises between the Philippines, the United States, and allied nations have officially concluded, ending nearly 3 weeks of live-fire drills, maritime operations, cyber defense training, humanitarian exercises, and joint command simulations spread across the Philippine archipelago. But as the exercises close, the debate surrounding them is only becoming louder. This year's Balikatan unfolded against a backdrop of rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific territorial disputes in the South China Sea and increasing concern among regional governments over coercive activity in contested waters. What began decades ago as a bilateral exercise has now evolved into one of the region's most significant multinational security platforms. Balikatan 2026 was also historic in scale. More than 17,000 personnel from 7 nations participated, making it one of the largest and most expansive editions of the exercise to date. Full participants included the Philippines, the United States, Japan, Canada, Australia, France, and New Zealand, while additional countries joined as observers. For Manila and Washington, the message was clear: Allied readiness is increasing. Critics, however, argue the exercises risk deepening regional confrontation. The Philippines has increasingly described security cooperation as necessary to defend sovereignty amid repeated incidents involving contested maritime areas. Officials argue that fisherfolk, Coast Guard units, and patrol vessels are facing growing pressure in disputed waters. At the center of the latest controversy stood Philippine Defense Secretary Gilbert II Teodoro Jr., who responded sharply to criticism coming from Beijing over parts of the drills. Teodoro said China is a greater threat to regional stability than the Balikatan exercises. The remarks reflected one of Manila's clearest public rebukes toward Chinese criticism during this year's exercises. Beijing objected particularly to a maritime strike phase involving Japanese participation. During a live-fire event near northern Luzon, Japan employed a Type 88 surface-to-ship missile system, drawing criticism from Chinese officials who described the move as destabilizing. Philippine authorities rejected those concerns and maintained the drills occurred within Philippine territory and sovereign jurisdiction. Yet what happened during Balikatan 2026 marked more than routine military coordination. For the first time in modern history, Japanese forces conducted an overseas live firing of Type 88 anti-ship missiles, a move analysts say demonstrates Tokyo's increasingly active regional defense posture. The missiles struck a decommissioned target vessel during exercises off northern Philippines. Military analysts say the event symbolized Japan's transition from a more restrained security role toward deeper integration with allied deterrence strategies in the Indo-Pacific. The U.S. have nailed deterrence, also showcase expanded capabilities. Reports from this year's XE exercises indicate long-range precision systems, including Tomahawk missile capability, featured prominently in demonstrations meant to reinforce deterrence and coalition coordination. Officials insist these activities are defensive. But the growing sophistication of the drills reflects an undeniable reality. Regional security competition is intensifying. The commander of USS Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel J. Papero Jr., warned that coercive activity across the region is becoming increasingly common. Papero said, "There are neighbors who have excessive claims and territorial disputes with every one of their neighbors, including the Republic of the Philippines." He delivered an even more direct assessment of current regional conditions. Paparo said, "I see signs abound that we're living in a tense and a dangerous environment with active coercion ongoing." His comments echoed concerns repeatedly raised by Philippine officials who say fishermen and Coast Guard personnel encounter press in disputed waters on a regular basis. The exercises themselves attempted to address precisely those scenarios. Balikatan included training in maritime denial, amphibious operations, humanitarian assistance, disaster response, cyber defense, intelligence sharing, and joint command and control procedures. Officials say the purpose is to ensure responses to future incidents are coordinated, lawful, and rapid. Another major development emerged quietly behind the scenes. Balikatan 2026 introduced a multinational common operating picture, allowing 8 participating nations to share real-time situational awareness through a connected command network. U.S. Indo-Pacific Command described it as a milestone in coalition interoperability and regional defense coordination. Defense planners say future crises may require exactly this kind of multinational information sharing. The armed forces of the Philippines also continued emphasizing modernization. Under General Romeo S. Bronner Jr., the military has increasingly focused on improving interoperability between branches while strengthening ties with partners. Regarding broader regional involvement, Bronner emphasized openness rather than exclusion. Bronner said, "We are not excluding anyone from the Balikatan exercise. We welcome as many countries as possible." The statement highlights Manila's balancing act, strengthening partnerships without appearing to form rigid blocks. Yet security policy remains politically sensitive at home. As senior officials gathered for closing ceremonies, protesters demonstrated outside and burned an effigy of U.S. side. President Donald Trump criticizing foreign military presence and urging greater focus on domestic challenges, including poverty, taxation, wages, and social welfare. For critics, increased military cooperation risks diverting attention from everyday struggles faced by ordinary Filipinos. Supporters counter that economic growth and security cannot be separated. Without stable, married, access secure trade routes and protected sovereignty, development itself becomes vulnerable. That debate may become one of the Philippines' defining political questions in coming years: how to strengthen deterrence while delivering economic gains at home. Defense officials are already discussing what comes next. Secretary Teodoro suggested future Balikatan exercises may expand geographically and operationally rather than simply increase troop numbers. Teodoro said increase in scope, but not necessarily in scale. He indicated planners are considering broader areas of operation and more diverse activities. More recent reporting suggests future additions could include wider participation and expanded operational zones beyond traditional focus areas. That reflects a larger transformation underway. Balikatan is no longer viewed solely as a bilateral U.S.-Philippines exercise. Increasing participation by Japan, Canada, Australia, France, and New Zealand has led many analysts to describe it as an evolving coalition deterrence framework for the Indo-Pacific. The numbers alone tell part of the story. More than 17,000 personnel, 7 participating nations. Additional observer states exercises spanning maritime, air, land, cyber, and information domains, and operations conducted close to 2 of Asia's most sensitive flashpoints, Taiwan and the South China Sea. For communities living near contested waters, however, the geopolitical calculations are far more personal. Fishermen want safe access to traditional grounds. Local governments want investment and stability. Military personnel are expected to exercise restraint under pressure. Citizens want better wages, lower costs, and visible improvements in daily life. Those competing demands now sit alongside expanding defense partnerships. As leaders review lessons from Balikatan 2026, the central question remains unresolved. Can broader military cooperation reduce coercion and strengthen stability without escalating confrontation? And can governments simultaneously reassure allies abroad while addressing concerns at home? The answers may shape not only the next Balikatan exercise, but the future security architecture of the Indo-Pacific for years to come.